Welcome to the Hostway FlexCloud control panel. We're going to walk through some of the features. This is the screen that you get to immediately after you create the account. So this is your dashboard here. You can set up a server instance immediately, which we'll get to in a few minutes. You can also view your resources. So my server instances that have been created, my storage volumes, IP addresses, firewall groups, and load balancers. A good place to start if you're new to FlexCloud servers is this documentation link right here. And what that does is explain some of our naming in a bit more detail. What a server instance means, server image, instance group, firewall group, etc. Great place to start right there. Going back to the dashboard, an item of note here is your zone. This is a drop down. You can actually choose to deploy your FlexCloud servers in a central US data center or an Eastern data center. Notice I've got 2 servers set up here in the Eastern and 4 servers set up in the Central zone. So those are servers in 2 different data centers. Nice to have that capability. Going down to server instances, we can see all the servers that I've got currently deployed. We'll pick on this instance here, and it's going to bring up a lot of management tasks here for that particular instance. So what we can see right now on this server is that it's currently running, when it was created, what image was used to create it, in this case a Windows 2008 standard. We can see that we've got 4 CPU cores running, 4 gigs of RAM, 40 gigs of storage. You can also look at some of the other items here on that server, and you can get your IP down there. So within this server instance, I can stop and restart it if I choose. I can delete it altogether. Bear in mind that the FlexCloud server platform is a utility billing model, meaning that you pay only for what you actually use, like your electricity bill. So you can stop and start services at any time, and if you delete the instance, your billing goes away upon deletion. Some of the management tasks include getting your password, managing volumes, managing IP addresses, changing the hardware spec if you like, creating a new instance exactly the same as the instance that's currently running. And you've got some software options as well. So managing your volume here, I can choose to create a new volume. And a volume is just a measurement of storage that you can add to the server. So I can create the disk size anywhere from 10 gigs to 200 gigs. I can attach it to the server. Very, very flexible. Within the IP addresses, I can create new IP addresses if I choose. They're $2 per month or quite a bit less than that per hour. I can select existing IP addresses to map to existing servers, or I could disassociate IP addresses from an existing server. So very flexible. Within the hardware spec, I showed you earlier that this server is currently running 4 CPU cores, 4 gigs of RAM, and 40 gigs of drive space. But if I choose, I can change that on the fly at any time, and I've got the corresponding price points that I can expect. So right now, I'm paying about $10 a month for 40 gigs of storage. If I wanted to bump it up to 100 gigs, I could expect to pay $25 a month for that corresponding amount of storage. So very flexible. I could change this up or down if I want to see how my application is going to run on 2 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM. I can do so and experiment with that for a few hours, and the billing is just going to map to whatever I use. So it's very, very flexible, especially compared to a dedicated server where adding RAM and disk and CPU is a bit of a manual process and obviously a bit more involved from a time perspective. Right here, I can create a new instance. I won't go into that right here, but I've got some software options as well. Since this is a Microsoft instance, I've got the ability to add SQL 2005 or 2008. Got some different options there. I can add a terminal services CAL. I can add a SSL if I like. There's also some monitoring choices. Or I could actually request to remove some software. I've currently got VPN services on the server. If I'd like to remove that, I can do so right there. Firewall group. FlexCloud servers by default are deployed behind a firewall with standard rule sets. However, you can go in and configure this as you see fit. So you've got that ability to do that on the fly. Snapshots for the server. With the FlexCloud server account, you've got the ability to create 3 snapshots within a month. What that does is create a complete snapshot of your server instance, all the data on it. And you can do that 3 times a month at no additional cost. And it's worth noting here that we are backing up the servers. Aside from being built on a highly redundant N+1 true high availability infrastructure, we're also using R1Soft's continuous data protection backup to back up all data on your server. It's a daily backup, and we keep that for a 7-day retention period. So that's out. On top of that, you've also got ability to create snapshots. So very, very robust backup mechanism included. For monitoring, you can drill down here to specific dates and do very specific monitoring on things like CPU utilization, disk read and write, bandwidth in and out, etc. And what that gives you is a graph of your current usage. So you can see I've got a little bit of a bandwidth spike there. And you can use that for all of your different mechanisms here. So clearly not using a whole lot of CPU right now on that server, but you've got the ability to monitor that in real time. Server images over here. You've got a population of predefined images that Hostway's given you here. Anything from Windows 2003, different variations there, Windows 2008, etc. Ubuntu, Red Hat, CentOS. Quite a number of operating systems to choose from there. And what these are images that you can choose to deploy your server. If you like any of these images here, you can deploy your server using these images. Managing the resources on the server, you've got your IP address, volume, firewall group, and load balancers. And you can configure all of that. Create new volumes, destroy volumes, etc. You've got your firewall groups. Load balancing, if you choose to have 2 or more servers that you'd like to load balance the web traffic on, you can simply create a load balancer, click of a couple of buttons. Up here, you've always got your pricing details. If you'd like to see what anything costs, you can see the hourly and the monthly cost. So we can see here that a load balancer is about $17 per month if you were to leave it on all month. Now, I would like to take a little moment here to explain our billing model. If you look at CPU Core, for instance, you see that it's this hourly charge here. If you were to extrapolate that out to 30 days of usage, it would be slightly higher than this. So what we do is look at your total usage for the month, and whichever number is lower, your hourly or your fixed monthly rate, that's the rate you'll be billed at. So you've got a price protection built in, and there's a bit more information on that right down here that you can read about. FlexCloud Server View. You've got some additional information there, and then you've got a user task log. So that's the overview of the FlexCloud Server platform. Some of the key benefits here are that you can deploy IT resources almost instantly. It takes about 15 minutes for a brand new server to deploy, but you can resize that server. You can resize the CPU, RAM, and disk utilization at any time. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there to create IT resources on the fly. If you wanted to spin up 10 servers, you could do so in a matter of minutes. Gives you a lot of flexibility to handle traffic spikes, or if you wanted to spin up a development environment for a short amount of time, you could do so. If you wanted to spin up a server for a client, you could do so. And as far as you're concerned as an end user, the server is going to function exactly like a dedicated server. You've got full root or admin access. You can load and run anything on the machines. And the infrastructure for FlexCloud servers is redundant to the extent that we actually offer a 100% uptime service level agreement on the actual server instance, which is basically unheard of. So no more single points of failure on a server. You've got a redundant infrastructure that we're guaranteeing is going to be up. The actual server instance is going to be up 100% of the time. So what we're going to go ahead and do here is actually set up an instance. It's a very simple process, but I'll walk through that. So I've clicked on set up an instance. The first item here in this wizard is going to be to choose my operating system. So I can choose from all of these operating systems here. Note the applications that are also available. If you'd like a control panel, we can include that. If you like SQL Standard, we can include that. Please bear in mind, if you create a server with SQL, that's going to add a few minutes to the deployment time. So you can expect a longer deployment when you're adding SQL to the server. I mentioned earlier that the server takes about 15 to 20 minutes to provision. Expect that to be a little bit longer with SQL. But you choose your operating system here. Let's just go with Ubuntu. We'll click Next, and that's going to allow us to set up our server instance type. Here's where you choose your CPU, memory, and disk. Bear in mind, this is not a permanent decision. You can change this absolutely at any time. So we could get started with 2 cores, 4 gigs of RAM, and let's just say 100 gigs of disk space. And just know that at any time, you can change that on your instance in real time while it's live without any downtime. Next, you'll choose a firewall group. We basically got defaults here for Linux, Windows, and the default firewall group. This is included by default, no extra charge. And finally, we're going to name the server, describe it, and really that's about all we have to do. We click Next, and you're going to enter your email address here and get a notification when the server's actually ready. So it takes about 15-20 minutes, and you'll get an email when the server's ready. Click Complete, and you're on your way to being the proud owner of a new FlexCloud server. So that's the overview of FlexCloud servers. I hope this has given you a good understanding of the flexibility of the platform, and you can go ahead and get started at any time creating your IT infrastructure on the fly. Thank you.